There was a time in my life that I loved everything that had to do with paranormal activity in the spiritual world. I would watch shows like Ghost Adventures and scour the internet for anything that had to do with the spirit. I even picked up some books by Hans Holzer, trying to pick his brain and what he'd found out about the paranormal world in his time on this earth. Days would pass, and I would spend another night trying to find my way into places with horrifying pasts. Some were old mental asylums, abused children wards, and prisons. All I had on my mind was getting myself into one of these places legally, as trespassing had gotten me into trouble before. I found an old ward with a history of horror. The owner promised to let me in to investigate for the night after I emailed him, and I wish I didn't. Next up was calling a friend to join me, but nobody had any interest of playing around in the spirit world. I called my friend Benny, trying to get a hold of anyone willing to go with me, and he picked up. He told me he was ready to go, and he would join me on my trip to this old, abandoned children's ward. I was very wrong in trying to interact with spirits. Watching those shows had me wanting to challenge the spirit world to show me how strong it was, or if it even existed. I could tell you from personal experience, it does. The day had come, and night was starting to fall. So we took off, driving 2 hours away to get to a place we'd call home until sunrise. The drive felt so short. Me and Benny kept talking back and forth about what we were going to experience. I don't know. I don't think anything's gonna happen, he said, but I do have the feeling something might. That was the best way to describe it. We didn't know anything, and here we were going to the thick of it. We were afraid of the dark and what might be in it, but we didn't know if anything would be. We had heard about the murders in the place and the mishaps that happened under adult supervision. Yet still, we were unsure if that would affect anything. It was just a few abandoned buildings anyway, right? We finally arrived, and to our description, we had drove down a lonely road. No lights lit the area, and the sky was canopied from any moonlight. Upon driving down the road, we took a turn down a dirt path guarded by a gate. "Hello, what are you here for?" a man proclaimed, in which we responded back, "We're here for the ghost hunting investigation," in which he nodded happily. "Follow that road until the roundabout, and then you can park there. Good luck." Everything seemed so nice at first, aside from the decay and abandoned buildings around us, of course. The world was quiet, and so was the forest surrounding the land. But when things are too quiet, you know something's wrong. Here we were, following the road to the building, and then we parked and looked at each other. Freaked out but excited, we said, "Let's go in." As we got out of the car and walked down the concrete walkway, we noticed how many buildings had been left there to rot. Each building previously housing hundreds of children, only closing in the 90s due to how badly they were treated. Kids were left here by parents because of their disabilities, along with some being left here because they just weren't wanted. Some say that the nurses would feed hundreds of them with the same spoon and do unregistered surgeries on them. Could feel it all of that energy and pent-up hatred, depression, and sadness. The land just felt cursed, and the building had a door slightly budged open, leading to a pitch-black room that involved us in it. We were really lights out, with nobody in sight but the two of us. We beckoned to each other on who should go in first. My cousin Benny's a scaredy cat, but he's also skeptic of anything paranormal, so I went in first. I knew tonight would be the night that something would happen to revert us to belief. I just felt it. The first step into darkness was from the courage at the bottom of my heart, which had sunk into my stomach. Using only my night vision camera screen as a light, I walked in. Upon entering, I noticed all the graffiti and scattered medical items, along with children's toys left all over. I proclaimed that nothing, "We're not here to hurt you, only here to help you," to which I received no response. Everything was dead, but it all felt so alive. Walking around the building, you would hear and see things that you didn't know were there. It felt like a whole community of people were alive and watching us from around every corner. I'm not afraid of the dark, but this place made me afraid throughout the night. Benny, who thought little to nothing about the surroundings, started hearing faint whispers of a little girl. He would ask me, "Did you hear that in my ear, man?" But I didn't. Throughout the night, he would keep telling me about her and that she kept talking to him. I didn't believe him, so we moved on. We entered different rooms to different surprises, seeing what seemed to be shadow figures peeking from corners, hearing knocks and footsteps all around us. I thought nothing of the little girl, and if TV told me one thing, it was to not trust ghosts who sound like them. Mimicking a person who's nice and sweet is the work of evil. To us, she was just trying to get us to trust her and help her, which is what we believed. We continued our exploration with the visitors from the other side hot on our trail. It seemed as if they were curious to see what we were doing there. Finally, we reached one of the last unexplored areas of the building. To get there, it seemed as if we'd climbed down 4 staircases of hell into a pit. We were greeted by the sound of a machine, which seemed to be a control alarm. As we pressed onwards past the alarm, we came across meat lockers, and my Ovilus device went off. The Ovilus device took energy from spirits and filled it with a word database, allowing them to project the words back to us. The first 3 words that came out were kill, murder, and then the most alarming one, my place of birth. Sending chills up my spine, Benny and I continued down to the end of the meat lockers, leading to a gigantic, open room. Upon looking around, we did our usual proclamation of why we were there and asked if the spirits needed any help. Unfortunately, to my unknowing, I spotted a pentagram on the ground with candles around it. In the middle of the pentagram was what seemed like a pigeon split in half, with one side being completely skinned and eaten. We received back as a response to our statement of help shook us to our core. Immediately, we heard the demon howl of a dog, followed by the largest bang I've ever heard. Stupidly, I stated, "We're not afraid of you. It's going to take a lot more to get us out of here." The door from upstairs heavily shut itself, creating a smack of power. Looking around in panic and utter disbelief, I turned on my flashlight to see a face staring at us from the other end of the room. As Benny and I witnessed the silhouette of a moving figure staring at us, we both screamed and ran in fright, leaving the building for the night. The drive home was quiet and solemn, as me and Benny did not say a word to each other. As it was my turn to drive home, I fell asleep behind the wheel, almost crashing. Part of me felt that it was due to the demon I opened myself up to. I let this energy in my life and it tried killing me for it. After returning home safely, I checked the footage we filmed. I heard the little girl. She was speaking to my camera multiple times, with the first telling us to help her. This girl followed us around into different sections of the building. Strongly believe it had her way with us that night, whatever it was. Both Benny and I were no longer skeptics. To this day, I still feel weird from that investigation. I'll always remember it, and not in the good way. Let this be a lesson to not challenge the dead, and to not question what can question back. The dead remain dead, and the living remain living, but do not question when you can't handle the answer. We haven't returned there, and we probably never will.